After 6 years, Harry and Meghan are moving back.
And I kind of did think, I must be dreaming.
I genuinely couldn't believe it. So why now, and where will they live?
We also now know they were probably sort of measuring up for the curtains in the new home that they were planning to move into.
And is this all part of a return to royal duties? We will tell you everything we know so far. Hello and welcome to this pop-up episode of Talking Royals. I think we all probably know why we're doing a pop-up in the middle of the summer. I'm Charlene White. I'm in the studio, and joining us from his holiday is Chris Ship. We weren't meant to see each other for weeks, Chris, and then this happened.
No, we were meant to have a break from one another, and something happened in the last 12 hours, which has meant that I'm on a Zoom call in this apartment in Greece, and you're in the studio, and we're having a chat about, well, yep, everyone knows now, Harry and Meghan. Well, I've seen it referred to as reverse Megxit, which is quite an interesting way of referring to it. But Harry and Meghan returning to the UK to live.
Yes, so they are returning. And, you know, there'll be lots of people that watch this podcast, and we are in the know about a lot of different things. But did we know this was going to happen?
The truth to that answer is no, I didn't know this was going to happen. That said, I knew that Harry and Meghan, for that matter, have been a bit unhappy in the United States, not really enjoying living in America generally, or specifically Donald Trump's America, and that Harry was missing the UK, missed the connections here. I suppose the way to look at it is that, you know, geographically he's a very long way from the UK, but also culturally he's a very long way to the UK. And I think he's been not only missing his time here, but it feels like his kids also need to have a connection to the country of their father's birth. And of course, it goes without saying that it's a country where, you know, Harry's father and the kids, Archie and Lilibet's grandfather is the king.
Now, there's lots of stuff being written about this in the last sort of 12 hours or so. And people have intimated the fact that it came as a bolt out of the blue to the king. Is that likely? Because, of course, they're only here a few weeks ago. Surely it must have come up in conversation at that point.
So, yeah, I think it probably did, although because those conversations are private and they tried to keep that as private as possible. And do you remember we were saying in a podcast just a few weeks ago that it is no surprise that nothing's leaked from that, because this was the deal that they've all done to keep private conversations private, you know, given everything that's happened in the past. What I do know is that in terms of the schooling, because Harry and Meghan's children, Archie and Lilibet, will now be going to school in the UK. And if you're not listening in the UK, you might need to know that school term starts in the new academic year, starts in September. That has only very recently been confirmed. So it wasn't, you know, nailed on that they were going to come back to the UK until very recently. But I am told that once the king wasn't, you know, informed officially until Sunday, he was one of the very first to be informed of it, because you can see the implications of everything if he weren't told. And Harry is improving his relationship with his father. They had that meeting at Highgrove House that Queen Camilla was at as well, with Meghan and the children. And you know, Charlene, it also answers the question, doesn't it? You know, we were talking a few weeks ago that Harry had that engagement at Invictus Games in Birmingham on the Friday. He had another event in the West Midlands on the Saturday in the UK, and then they didn't leave the UK until Sunday went by, Monday went by, and they went on Tuesday evening. They effectively had 3 days here when we were told they were seeing friends. Well, they might have been seeing friends, but we also now know they were probably sort of measuring up for the curtains in the new home that they were planning to move into in September.
And do we have any indication of where that new home may be, or is that sort of information, because they're not working royals, it won't be a royal residence, one can assume, but will it be somewhere where everybody is aware of the fact that is their new home?
We don't know at the moment. I mean, I've seen that people are starting to talk about the Cotswolds area, or, you know, Oxfordshire, Buckinghamshire. These are all places that are, you know, within an hour or so's drive from London, where also Meghan and Harry will both have some connections and some friends as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of those. But what I do know is it's not a royal residence, and this was a home that has come up, that they've checked out the security of the home, they're satisfied with it, and it's a home they're going to have in addition to the Montecito home. They're not selling up in Montecito, that's going to belong to them still, but also they've got this property that they've recently started staying in Portugal as well. So they're going to be a family that probably moves between all three locations, but in terms of schooling, they'll be in the UK while their kids are in school, that's the academic year that runs from September all the way through to June or July.
Now, here's the thing. You and I both know anytime we do any of these podcasts that feature Meghan or Harry, the kind of awful vitriol and trolling that those two get indirectly by posting on anything that we do, that stuff still stands. And when they decided to leave the UK, they were very honest and very direct about their reasons for leaving, the kind of animosity that they felt that they were getting in the press here, the negative headlines that they felt they were getting in the press here, and also talking about the fact that Meghan felt unsafe. What's changed? I get that they perhaps don't want to live in a Trump America, for example. There are a lot of very famous Americans who have moved here. Ellen DeGeneres is one of them, her and her wife, for instance. But all of the other stuff, all of the other reasons why they decided to pack up and leave, those reasons still stand. So why are they almost walking back into that black hole of awfulness?
I mean, it's such a big question. There are actually lots of parts to the question you just answered. Let's just deal, first of all, with the security issue. As we know, Harry took His Majesty's government, the Home Office, to court over security, saying I should get security, taxpayer-funded security when I'm in the UK. Do you remember we said a few weeks ago, Charlene, that it was going to be put in place, or they thought it was going to be put in place for their recent UK visit, and then it didn't? And nothing happened, nothing changed there. I think there's a couple of things that changed the security assessment. Now, RAVEC, which is the committee, the Home Office committee that decides who gets what security, a couple of things there. One, if Harry and Meghan are resident in the UK, does that change the assessment that they will make of Harry and Meghan's security? I think you have to say yes, because they're going to be permanently here as opposed to just coming and going ad hoc without, giving anyone very much notice. And secondly, I mean, this one's a bit more tenuous, but, we spoke recently about the man in the grey suit, Sir Clive Alderton, who is the King's principal private secretary, with whom Harry has had a massive personality clash, the one he referred to in his book as the Wasp. He announced a few weeks ago that he was retiring next year, so not soon, but he sits on that RAVEC committee. There's two things that have changed on the security issue. And my understanding is there's a whole bunch of moving parts going on at the moment. There's nothing to announce right now, but they are, I think, hopeful, but then they were hopeful before and nothing happened, but they're hopeful that something might change on that front very soon.
Well, one of the reasons that they decided to leave in the first place was Harry said he was really concerned about his wife's mental health as a result of all those, quite frankly, dreadful headlines. I remember when they were talking about her being almost straight out of Compton, for example, and an almost obsessive line of headlines when it came to her. Do you think perhaps she understands what it means to be in the royal family now better than she did then? Therefore, I don't know, has got this suit of armour now where they feel that she'll be able to cope better with that sort of thing in terms of her own mental health?
I think a lot has happened since they left the UK. Remember, they went on that tour of Southern Africa. They did that interview with our colleague Tom Bradby in late 2019. And then by January 2020, they were out of the UK, never to return. I mean, a lot has happened. A lot of water's gone under the bridge. But then again, a lot has been said. Netflix programs, Oprah Winfrey interviews, the book Spare. We know a lot more about the circumstances of what happened. A lot of that anger, I think, has passed on both sides. Anger from the royal family that Harry said so much, but also anger from Harry towards his family. I think one relationship we know, and you don't need me to tell you this, Charlene, one relationship that won't improve is the one with his brother, not certainly anytime soon. But there's a definite improvement in the relationship Harry has with his father. And therefore, that gives them a much better way of operating when they come here. But remember, they're not coming back as working members of the royal family. They're coming back for whatever reason. I think there is a reason. I'm going to try and work on finding out what that is. But they are coming back. And they're not rejoining the royal family. So what they think they want to do is pick up their life in Montecito in California, and the way they operate now, Meghan does her as ever brand, Harry does his things, and then just move it to the UK. And when it comes to the kids going to school, for example, well, they go to school in America. No one takes photographs of them going to school. We still haven't seen their faces. They're going to try and do something like that here. And that's the difference, I think, between William and Kate, who you remember showed us, allowed 1 or 2 cameras in to film George and others starting school. And we spoke recently, didn't we, about Eton and how they're going to sort that out. I think it's Harry and Meghan's plan, at least. I don't know how long this will last, that they don't tell us where they're going to school. They don't confirm which school they're at, and if anyone has a photo, they'll go to the IPSO, which is the press complaints organisation, and say, well, these are kids and they're private and you've got no right to show their pictures.
Do you think there is ever a situation in the world where they move here and perhaps are able to do the deal that they wanted in the first place, which is 1 foot in, 1 foot out when it comes to the royal family? They do a few official duties. They are very popular. They do a few official duties, but are able to keep part of their lives to themselves and have control of part of their lives.
I can't see that happening, because we know that's not what the late Queen wanted. She said you can't be half in, half out. Then there's all the question marks about, well, you've got this business deal or that business deal, and you're trading off those links in order to make money, and you're using your fame in order to earn income, and that's not why we give you taxpayers' money. I just can't see that happening, Charlene. I can't see how, after everything they've said, that they suddenly just jump back in. I think Harry would like it to happen. I don't think Meghan would. But she thinks she can have the life that she's currently got in California, minus the sunshine, and have that in the UK. And a very different kind of life to the one she had when they were living at Frogmore Cottage in Windsor. She felt very isolated, couldn't go out. Their hope is that they can do this thing in the UK for however long they plan to live here, whether that's permanent or 1 year or 2 years, which I think is linked to this reason why they're coming back. And not go back to what she had before, because as we know, she didn't like it. She thought she was being, her mental health suffered. She even spoke about being on the verge of suicide. They don't want to go back there, obviously, and I don't think that's what they think is going to happen. But Harry will want to, as he says, I pledged to give a life of service, and I want to do that service wherever possible. And do you remember, Charlene, when we were in Ukraine with Harry recently, and he said to us, I don't recognise the term working royal, and I'll always be a member of the royal family. This is kind of along those lines of thinking, isn't it? I'm still 5th in line to the throne. My kids are 6th and 7th. I will give whatever I can give, but in the terms of not officially becoming a royal family and not taking money from the public purse.
Actually, do you know what? I was just looking at that this morning, and actually put it onto our system just that we could watch it and just have a look at what he said then and how that may well relate to what's happening now. Let's take a listen.
I will always be part of the royal family, and I'm here working and doing the very thing that I was born to do, and I enjoy doing it.
So are we going to see him doing a lot more charity stuff here? We know that there are very specific charities and organisations that he works with here. Are we going to see him more out and about in the UK, or is he going to keep it very international?
Do you know what? Listening to that answer again, you sort of wonder, was Harry warming us up there for this kind of announcement? And you put all those pieces of the jigsaw in place, misses the UK culturally, misses a lot of friends that he's got here. I don't think for a second he goes around to Oprah Winfrey's house for a beer in the afternoon, or Katy Perry or his other neighbours in California. So if you put those things together, the improving relationship with his father, the fact he still wants to do things like Invictus Games, which in itself is in the UK next year, there are lots of those pieces of the jigsaw were already in place, weren't they? Add to that what Harry told us, just a couple of months ago in Ukraine. I will always be a member of this family. I'm doing what I was born to do. And I mean, suddenly the decision that the announcement that we've had today kind of makes a bit more sense, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I just think, I was reading, I've been reading quite a few of the old articles that she'd given once they'd moved out to the States. It was a really long article in an American magazine called The Cut, where they'd gone to their house and they'd interviewed them both. And there was a lot about the isolation that that Harry may well have felt moving to the States because, you know, he was starting again. He didn't have a wide circle of friends like he would have had here. He didn't have a wide circle of family. He comes from a big family. He didn't have any of that stuff when he was there. And I guess over time, especially when you have kids, that stuff has really got to grate at you. And you sort of want your kids to grow up in the sort of environment that, well, not completely the sort of environment he grew up in here, but the British sensibilities, which I suppose you don't get in the States. And so those sort of clues perhaps that he was setting up, I suppose homesickness, we all know people who've moved abroad at some point in their lives, but their heart is always here. But that comes with a lot of worry, I can imagine. Do you believe that the press will give them a break? Or do you think we're going to go back to a time where, quite frankly, one could argue they hounded her?
I think that loneliness thing, Charlene, works both ways, doesn't it? Harry was lonely in California, might have gone off for sort of hikes on his own in the Californian hills, but then equally Meghan was lonely when she lived here. And I think anyone who knows couples who have, international couples who have married, one of them is always going to be disconnected from their homeland. And Harry was clearly disconnected in the USA. But then, as we know from everything that Meghan has said, she didn't exactly have a great time when she was living in the UK. But I think they feel like they might be able to better handle that if they're not inside the royal family. They don't have to stick to all those rules and rules of engagement, etc. So that's probably the decision they've come to. As for the question about the press, yeah, I mean, you've got to think about we're in a different time, as we've said again on this podcast, to when we were in the 80s and 90s. And you know all those times, Charlene, recently you said, I can't believe that they filmed him doing this, or I can't believe that they had 60 million cameras when William went to school at age 4. Do you remember? And we had all those conversations. So we have moved on from there. But equally, I mean, this is such now a big story where the spotlight turns from California to the UK, and you wonder how Harry's going to do that. Now, you think of the Mail group, in particular, Associated Newspapers, with whom he's had a massive fight and lost in court. I don't think they're going to be very sympathetic in any of their coverage of this story in the next day or two. And you wonder how they're going to be able to balance that press intrusion once people find out where they live, and I'm sure that will come out in due course. Once they find out where their kids are going to school, once they find out what it is Harry and Meghan are doing here, or why they've come back to the UK, will that give the British tabloid press, I'm not saying that all the media, but the tabloid press, an excuse to start putting cameras behind bushes or staking out their driveway, etc. So that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I know we're in a different stage to the 1990s, but equally, given how many enemies Harry has, and let's just say Associated Newspapers is one of them, how that's going to play out.
It'll be interesting to see how both sides navigate that, because I guess the difference between last time round is there are 2 children involved, and one would hope that wherever you sit, where press is concerned, that nobody wants those 2 children to go through hell, quite frankly. And that hell is something that both William and Harry grew up with, and that's the one thing that both of them have been trying to protect their children from.
I completely agree. I think the children thing changes the whole dynamic, but also being outside the royal family. So no longer, remember when there was that time to say, Meghan's just given birth to Archie, we demand to have a picture with him immediately. I mean, they can do things in their own way now. And as we've seen from Meghan's social media, she does put pictures of her children on the TV, online, posts about them, but she chooses not to show their faces, so that if you were to walk past them in the street, you wouldn't necessarily identify them. And I think we're in a different situation, and therefore that privacy argument versus the sort of public life that they've chosen to live does change when you have children. And I think their hope is, clearly they wouldn't be coming back to the UK if they thought their children's privacy was going to be compromised. So clearly they're satisfied with their home, the schooling, and able to sort of go out and about in their daily lives and say to photographers, this is private, you don't have any right to take pictures of these kids.
So we're looking at September, perhaps the end of August, because as we know, a lot of the state schools go back to school the first week in September. I'd like to think one of them is going to send their kids to state school, but I doubt that's going to happen. And the private school kids go back sort of the week of the 7th of September or so. And so end of August, is that what we're possibly looking at, to get the kids all settled, buy school uniform, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say they've now got the school sorted, and therefore they know where they're going to go. And I would have thought it'd be fairly close to where they live, because I think Harry and Meghan will want to be able to do the sort of drop off in the same way that William and Kate do, and no one takes photographs of William and Kate on the times they take their children to school. So I think they'll want to do that. The school will be fairly close to the home. And yeah, I mean, it stands to reason. If you want your kids in school and settled, you need to be here by, at least the first week of September, which is, only a couple of weeks away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can't quite believe we're having this conversation. Harry and Meghan, after Mexit, after Oprah, after Netflix, after everything that doesn't get on with the brother, not talking to his dad, then the dad's cancer, and you wonder, is there anything involved in his dad's health? And again, I'm not speculating here, but, does Harry want to be closer to his father, given his age and his health circumstances? You put all these things together, and suddenly we're here doing a special podcast about Harry and Meghan moving back to the UK. It's quite staggering, really, isn't it?
Honestly, I know we're on different timelines, but when the breaking news came through to my phone about 10 o'clock last night, I genuinely couldn't believe it. Because as you say, we've had so many conversations about so many things in last year where that couple is concerned. This was not on my bingo card, Chris.
No, I'm a couple of hours ahead of you, and I didn't see the news last night, and I woke up this morning. I thought I might still be dreaming or something. I saw a lot of messages on my phone, and you get, as journalists, you see those messages on your phone, and you go, "Oh God, what's happened?" And every WhatsApp has got like the number 64 next to it, and your emails are pretty big. And I kind of did think, "Oh no, I must be dreaming. Surely this isn't the case." So then you see that, it's on front pages of newspapers, and, congratulations to Victoria Ward at The Telegraph, who I think was the first to get this story, although 4 publications chose to call it an exclusive. And my understanding of the English language is only, if it's exclusive, only one paper has it, but there were about 4 publications that had it. But yes, and then therefore, and I sat there and thought, wow, that's, that's one day of my vacation ruined.
Yeah.
Secondly, I thought I was not expecting that. But it was always a pleasure to talk to you. So, I mean,
Obviously.
every cloud has a silver lining.
And I do know you did very secretly miss me. I've got a prediction though, Chris. I'm thinking about the timings when school starts and all the school supplies they've got to buy, yada, 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 join the class WhatsApp group. Oh, Meghan's going to find that bit so fun. I reckon they're going to rock up.
But she must be on one in the US, surely. There must be a class WhatsApp group. Or I think Americans don't use WhatsApp in the way that we do.
No.
But there'll be a sort of iMessage WhatsApp group or something.
It won't be the same. I reckon she needs to binge things like Motherland, for example, so she gets an understanding of how those things work. But my prediction is, thinking about timings, I think they're going to rock up to the Notting Hill Carnival on Bank Holiday Monday.
Oh well, that would be interesting. Yeah, that's the way to way to return to the UK, isn't it?
What better way to make a splash back in the UK than Europe's biggest street festival, celebrating Caribbean culture, and Harry and Meghan on the top of a float saying, "We're back, guys." Mic drop.
Yeah, but I think it will happen quite soon. And, and again, I think, as there's the palace, let it be known, the king is very pleased that he's going to get to see his son and grandchildren more often. But they're also clear that there's been no change to the situation with Harry and Meghan. So, yeah, wow, there you go.
It's like the next episode of Shameless Royale or something like that. I do think they're like the Kardashians or the Shameless family. Anyway, Chris,
we're gonna have lots more to talk about in our next podcast, aren't we? So
I know
we'll probably have some more detail by then.
I reckon there's probably a chance I'm going to end up dipping into your holiday again at some point in the next few weeks. But it is always a pleasure.
No, I'm actually reaching for my phone and finding the off button, do not disturb.
Yeah. There's always more than one way for me to get hold of you, Chris, so you know perfectly well that won't work. Thanks for dipping into your holiday. But until next time, Chris Ship, thank you very much. That's it for now. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Whilst you're here, why not check out our summer series, where we've been joined by a range of guests, including journalist Catherine Mayer and royal author Simon Vigar. For now, though, thank you so much for joining us. Who knows? Another pop-up may well be hitting your screen soon. So we'll see. Bye-bye.